Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Before I get going, like always, wherever you're watching, like, subscribe. Please share this out. The more we try to get more eyes on it. Anytime anybody wants to get on and talk anything, any sports, any topic, I am willing to talk about it with you. But I do appreciate everybody that's listening, everybody that shared this out. Trying to help this grow. Please go check it out. Got different videos, different talks with episodes with just me. Talked with some really great coaches on there. Um, yeah, this episode, unfortunately, you guys are stuck with me. I want to get back to doing some of these topics with me. Episode, get some great coaches on, got some coming up. Um, so anytime you guys want to talk, let me know. Today, a topic that I want to talk about is something as old as time that us coaches, no matter what sport we coach, we talk about. We always talk about Jimmys and Joes, not the X's and O's. We always say that it's Jimmys and Joes. That when players win games and coaches lose them, and that's pretty true. When you've got the athletes, you can drop anything in the sand and they'll run it. And when you have a good team, good talented team, you can run anything you want. People always talk about this Alabama team. If they were decided to come out and run the veer option, if they were coached well enough, they could probably go out there and do it. Or like if he decided to line up in a, pro style, go back to Nick Saban's pro style I formation, they could probably, do it and figure it out. As high school coaches, we talk about Jimmys and Joes, and I think we've all been there where we have a good team or a decent team. We feel like we have them in a good situation. We go out there and we just lose to a team. Maybe they made some extra plays and stuff. Or like, man, we just did not have the Jimmys and Joes. No matter what kind of offense or defense you called or you installed, maybe we've all played those teams, or maybe we are those teams. We are those teams. That no matter what happens, you're not going to beat them. Um, you need everything to go your way, and sometimes it just doesn't. We've all maybe coached on that team, maybe we haven't. I've only been able to do that a couple of times where I could sit there and say, we had the Jimmys and Joes to win that game, and been on a lot of different sides where it was they have the Jimmys and Joes and we just didn't. Um, so that's true. So a couple of things here is that I may contradict myself on, but that's fine. One thing I want to talk about is I think that phrase sometimes Jimmys and Joes, not the X's and O's, is not entirely true. Yes, Coach Steve is crazy. Yes, Coach Steve is losing his mind. So we're going to talk about it. I think it's Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, at the end of the day, no matter what you have, if they've got 6'7" receivers, 6'5" receivers, and a quarterback that can throw it, you may not stop them if your corner is 5'8". On offense, if you've got an offensive line that's only 220 pounds or 200 pounds, and their defensive line is 300 pounds or 280 pounds or 60 pounds, you may not move them. It's just not going to happen. There's times where it's Jimmys and Joes in that aspect. But to me, X's and O's necessarily isn't always what you're running. It's what you're doing for those players to put them in the situation to be successful. To me, that's X's and O's. That is positioning. That's game planning. So to me, it's Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's. For example, there's a lot of coaches that, and we all know, maybe you are one of them, and I apologize if I, offend anybody, but there's some coaches out there that are stuck in what they're going to do. So if they're, we always talk wing T, option, spread. I think it goes to both sides. For example, if you're a spread team that wants to throw air raid stuff, which is fantastic, but if you just have a team that year that you have a hand down tight end, you put a hand down tight end to get an extra gap in the run game. You come in and you say, man, I've got a big offensive line that could push some people around. I've got a running back that could really, really make some cuts. I've got this or that. Why would you not, instead of going 2x2 and 3x1 and 5 wide the whole time, and just say, hey, you know what? Maybe this offseason, instead of just having inside zone or inside zone and power or whatever it is, hey, what if I do inside zone, power, trap, or wide zone? What if I go in having that game plan? What if I decide to bring a head down tight end, bring down an H back, That's putting those guys in the best situation. That goes to X's and O's because you have the Jimmies and the Joes. If you come in and you realize, you know, I think you can coach the quarterback to throw the ball. So I'm not going to go that route of, oh, the quarterback just can't throw the ball 20 yards. You don't need that to throw the ball. As long as you can throw 5 to 8 yards, if your quarterback can't do that, he shouldn't be quarterback. Especially if you were going to run a spread or a air raid type offense. So I think that if you come in and you go, man, I've got this big offensive line, I've got this good running back, but I'm still going to widen it out and we're going to throw it. And I want my 300-pound lineman to really get in front of them and keep them away from the quarterback at all times. As a defensive coordinator, if I saw they had 300-pound linemen and I knew I had some speed on the outside and do some stunts and some blitzes that they couldn't pick up because they were pass blocking the whole time, that's going to happen. Now, are you always going to win that battle? No. There's plenty of big offensive linemen that can move. But at the high school level, how many of those kids, first of all, how are you going to have 300-pound linemen? I don't know. But if there's a high school that's got some 300-pound linemen, they're running the ball. One thing we're focusing on at the school I'm at now is tell me what the kid can do. What can you do? So don't try to force something that they can't do. Things can be coached. I understand that. Don't force a quarterback to throw 20 yards down the field. I'm not saying that, but it can be coached. It can be drilled. But for example, if I got an offensive lineman that just cannot skip pole, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, he can't skip pole. If I'm looking, I can say, well, you know what? He can run. He can take a quick first step when he fires off. So that tells me maybe he necessarily shouldn't be guard. Maybe he should be center because I'm not pulling the center. Maybe he should be a tackle because I'm probably not pulling the tackle. Since he's fast, maybe we should run once in a while, maybe move him around. Even an offensive line, we can move him. Maybe run a screen that way. So focus on what he can do. So it goes to if you have the Jimmies and Joes, go for it. So back to the spread thing, you need to adapt to it. If you're a wing T team, a veer option, pro style. Again, you get a kid that can come in and just sling it, but you want to run the ball 90% of the time. You've got some speed. Maybe you've got a quarterback that can chuck it. I think you need to adapt. And Jimmy's and Joe's, you're not putting those kids in a good situation. Now that happens where kids, they got a quarterback that can just chuck it. They got some speed and they run their wing T and it's still good. It's all good, man. They still win games. You just may a little bit have Jimmy's and Joe's, and that's where it contradicts me a little bit. But there's times where I've seen firsthand a team run a pro style where they had a quarterback that went to college to play quarterback. The kid could throw a football. They had the most speed I've seen on a team in a long time. And they ran pro style and they were scoring 40 points a game. But the times where it mattered was they had the Jimmies and the Joes where they were playing. Their conference wasn't as good. They get to the playoffs or play certain teams and, you didn't win the big game when you should have. And so I think that if you've got these Jimmies and the Joes, you have to focus on what they can do, not what you want them to do. And so if you're a guy that's going to run pro style, but you got guys that maybe spread it out, I'm not saying you would change your entire offense, keep your terminology, whatever. So if you're a wing T team, that's your base. But once in a while, maybe you put in a pistol. That's you adding or adapting. Now, don't do it during the season. You know what you've got coming in the off season. Go about it that way. So I think that if you have Jimmy's now, then people argue back. Well, if you don't have the Jimmies and the Joes, run the wing T because it's no mistakes. I argue that because what do you mean you don't have the Jimmies and the Joes? People think that you have to have all state, all county wide receivers to run the spread. No, you adapt. Oh, Coach Steve, what do you mean? To run the spread, you have to have these all-time receivers. You have to have these stud athletes. You have to have this. No, you don't. You come in and you want to run some type of spread offense, air raid. You want to come in and run this, because I can argue if you don't have a running quarterback, how do you run the veer option? Well, coach, if he gets 3 or 4 yards, that's fine. Well, I can argue that with a spread. Run a zone read. If he gets 3 or 4 yards, that's the same thing as these veer options telling me this. You can adapt offenses and everything to the guys you have, your Jimmies and your Joes. So if you are a guy that wants to come out and run the spread, you do not need these all-state wide receivers. Somewhere on your team, I promise you, can be a good wide receiver. Well, coach, we're not going to throw the ball around. I didn't say that. Spread, you can run the ball. Spread them to run the ball. Run Just have the guy, just because he's in shotgun, yeah, you're a spread, but you can run the ball. You don't need guys that are super fast. Run a jet motion and just hand the ball off, but you have a tight end H-back that's a lead blocker to run the ball. They don't need to be fast to go get the ball. Okay. I understand there's things that we can coach, but at the end of the day, the kids, focus on what they can do. If you don't have those guys and you realize, well, I can line them up on a wing and they're good at getting in the way, good in the way of blocking, that's what they can do. They can do it. So if you run the spread, don't go from the spread and then all of a sudden say, well, I'm just not going to have these fast kids. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And bring it down to a wing team. That's changing your entire system. Pick a system and find a way to adapt it. During this podcast, which has been great, I haven't talked to as many coaches as others, but some of the guys I've talked to on offense have talked about that, whether it's wing T, veer option, pro style, or spread. Some coaches say they're going to do what they do. But at the end of the day, they adapt. Talked to a coach a while back. They run the spread. And we talked about it, and I asked, what is it with coaches that just don't adapt? He talked about getting basketball kids out. But there's times where he does get basketball kids out. That doesn't mean that he's going to get that 6'7" receiver. It doesn't mean he's going to get a 6'5" receiver. He might get a 6-foot receiver. And it may not be blaring speed, but they work on the offseason. But if he doesn't have it, he's not going to chuck the ball. He's not going to run 6. He's not going to run just straight verticals. It might be bubble screens. It might be, the jet motion play action, but you're handing off to the running back like a pistol thing. It might be just running more tunnel screens. It might be just running an inside zone and trap. It might be doing this and that. He adapts to what he has. And being in the spread for them kind of helps them out. I'm not here to sell the spread. I love watching wing T teams. That's what you do great, but I think you have to adapt. Coach, that gets away from our system. We're going to add plays. If you come in an offseason and you go, oh my goodness, I have a 6'3" quarterback or whatever, my goodness, he can throw the ball 15 yards on the dime. Oh my goodness, I have a kid that can move. I have a guy that can run the ball. I have a guy that motions. You run your wing T stuff, man. Maybe you run more waggle. Maybe you run play action more. Maybe you talk to a spread air raid team and said, man, how do you coach the stick concept? Maybe instead of staying in your wings, because there's veer teams and option teams. I talked to a great coach that runs the flex bone stuff. They still line up in 2x2, man. They run the same thing. Why not? Why not? Jimmy's and Joe's and X's and O's, in my opinion. Now, no matter what you do, you could do all that. Coach Steve, we're going to listen to you. We're going to do that type of stuff. Then you go out there and it doesn't work in the spring or whenever you're playing. Coach Steve, you're an idiot. They just had better. That's the type of situation where it's Jimmy's and Joe's. You as a coach have to feel confident, though, no matter what Jimmy's and Joe's that you are about to go faces. Did we do our X's and O's, our game planning, to put those kids in the situation? If you leave practice every day that week, you win the day. You leave practice going, you know what, they're in a good situation, so what happens, happens. How many times have we seen a corner go against a wide receiver and they're in good position, but the quarterback just put the ball exactly where he needed to, or the receiver just out jumped and got the ball? That's the situation to me of Jimmy's and Joe's. But guess what? You put that kid in a good situation, maybe his hands were right there on the chest, he just barely missed punching the ball out. How many times are you an offensive lineman and you're base blocking, and then all of a sudden they do a really good rip off, but you were there, you were moving your feet, you just couldn't move him because he was bigger, but you were there, you were doing what you were coached. That's Jimmy's and Joe's. If what you're coaching is translating to the game, now I'm not talking about wins and losses. Wins and losses, I talked to a coach, I don't know if you want to call it a circle thing or it's this pyramid. You do these things, it's going to translate. As a coach, are you seeing what you're doing on the practice field go to a game? All the time, it's not going to be a win all the time. And it's frustrating. But when you go back and watch the film and say, you know what, though? Man, we really practiced on backpedaling, really practiced on punching, we really practiced on our quarterback's footwork. Man, they were actually blocking in the right way. We just couldn't really move them off the ball because they were big. Our running back just got, or whatever it is. If they're doing the stuff you're coaching more often than not when you watch the game film, that's all you can ask. And at the end of the day, that's where it comes down to. They just had the Jimmy's and Joe's. You put your Jimmy's and Joe's and adapted what you needed to do, for that. And That's all you can ask for. So I'm going to try my best to not say, oh, just Jimmy's and Joe's, not the X's and O's. The X's and O's necessarily don't win you the game. That's the Jimmy's and Joe's. But you as a coach, what happens is you have to adapt the X's and O's. You have to adapt what you do, put those kids in a very good situation, and then it's on. And then you kind of, I'm not a parent, but when people always talk about their kids go off to college or they move out or do whatever, you have to hope you raised them right when they decide to move out and decide to go out in the world, and they decided to go out there, and you hope you raised them right. And coaching's kind of like that, if you want to say Saturday through Thursday or Monday through Thursday, whatever your days are, you just got to hope and sit there and think, I hope that I raised them right for Friday night or Saturday whenever you play, and just hope that you raise them right or put them in a good situation. So to me, that's what it's X's and O's, or it's Jimmy's and Joe's and X's and O's. It's never going to be just X's and O's. Sometimes it's cool to see a change. How many times have we seen, especially in college, and we see a new coach come in and they change the X's and O's, and sometimes it works right off the bat just because it's new. Maybe they didn't know that team was going to do that. Not to talk bad about Mike Leach, but kind of the same thing. I know LSU was really down, but how cool was it to see Mississippi State run the air raid because it was new, it was fresh. Kind of when he went to Washington State, it was kind of the same thing. Urban Meyers of the world going to Florida and Ohio State and all that stuff. It's cool to see adaptive things, and then they get the recruits for it. How many times have you seen a high school program struggle just a little bit? Maybe they bring in a brand new head coach and they change up the system. It's pretty cool to see that. So sometimes X's and O's, they don't win the whole game, but it's cool to change, and it's cool to be excited for something different sometimes, regardless if it was they ran the spread and a wing T guy comes in or a veer option or vice versa. It doesn't matter. And I keep talking about offense because I'm an offensive guy. I don't mean to leave out defense. I need to get more defensive coaches on here talking, but I don't mean to leave them out at all. It's the same thing. If you're coming in and stalling and you go, man, I want to run the 3-4, but you come in and you go, maybe, I know some of you 3-4 guys might argue with me, and that's great, or not argue, but correct me or teach me. I want to be taught. Man, we just don't have a nose guard. It's going to take on that double team because focus on what he can do. Well, he can get penetration when we do our drills, but in a game, he just, that's what he can do. So to me, maybe you should go to a 4-man front. Don't force that 3-4. Maybe there's situations where it's 3rd and 12, you hop in there, but if that's your base defense, maybe that's not what you do. Focus on what the kid can do. Man, Nick Saban, for example, he talked about it. Corners have to line up this way. They have to do this. They have to do that. What if a kid cannot move or do his break the way you want him to in that stance, but when you adjust the stance, even though it's not traditional, maybe it's not what you necessarily want to do, but he can do it. To me, that's X's and O's. That's, drills. That's getting them there. So on defense, to me, is the same thing. Put those kids in a good situation to be successful. Put those kids away to where they know what to do. We always say we want them to play fast and react, but if they know what's going on, they play fast. They don't think they know what's going on. They're going to play fast. They're comfortable. They're going to play fast. They're comfortable. They're going to react. It's not always just Jimmy's and Joe's. You can have the Jimmy's and Joe's, and sometimes it's going to work out. Sometimes you have. I'm going to ask you guys, and you'll never answer me, but maybe we'll see. How many of you coaches have seen teams that have these stud athletes? Oh my goodness, they can win state with that team. They can go undefeated with that team, and then they don't make the playoffs, or they lose 3 or 4 games and they make the playoffs and they lose the first round. The coach gets blamed, of course. Now, was it because it was a bad nucleus? Was it because those kids weren't bought in? That could be a reason. That could be kind of an excuse. But as a coach, do you look back and go, man, I was just forcing something on them and I didn't adapt? Were you a spread team that should have been lining up with an H-back tight end? Maybe go to a pistol that year, keep your run plays maybe you adapt and you needed to run the ball more than try to force all this other stuff. Were you a wing T team or a veer option that just, if your veer option did not have a running quarterback, just, but he could throw the ball, but you were putting them in a bad situation. You need to adapt the X's and O's to your Jimmys and Joes. So to me, it's Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's. I know some things are not popular, what I just said. I am willing to not necessarily argue. I never want to argue. I am willing to debate. I am willing to learn. I am willing to be corrected. I am love to hear other people's opinions and respect them, and it might change my mind. Okay. So please just, this was just a thought that I had. And since I have this podcast platform, it's a way to get the thoughts out. So there's the episode for that. That's just what I think. It's what, we always just say the same thing. And some of the things we all say as coaches, we all talk about adapting. We're not old school. It's, for me, it's, hey, I'm going to think about this and talk about it. And so thanks again, anybody out there listening. Please share this out to try to grow this. Check out the great coaches I have on there. Share it out. If you ever want to come on, don't be afraid to reach out to me. We will make it happen. I don't care what topic it is, or if you want me to come up with them. Any of you guys got offensive drills, offensive plays, an offense, a defensive drill, defensive play, special teams, and you guys want to present them or talk about them and teach me something new, let's do it. Let's roll. Let's get this growing. So I appreciate all of you. So stay safe out there. Good luck to all the coaches coaching right now. I'm living vicariously through you. And I will see you guys next time.